Paris is closed for the day. Few events can bring this city to a standstill. The start and end of wars, the jackboot of a conqueror, revolutions, and every year in the heat of July, a bike race. In continental Europe, the views of an Australian wrestling with the language are in demand. Here he's sought after, widely known, often quoted. Phil Anderson in Europe is a superstar of cycling. He's the first non-European to win a stage at the Tour de France, the first Australian to wear a yellow jersey in the Tour, the first Australian to lead a French team, lauded and feted abroad, yet curiously, a stranger in his homeland. Anderson's credentials are impressive. In 1983, he won Holland's most important classic, the Amstel Gold Race. He's won the Tour de l'Aude twice, one of France's top 5 tours. He was second in the inaugural Tour of America and second in the Swiss Tour de Romandie. In this continent, cycling is less a sport, more a way of life. And the Tour de France is the life force. The biggest annual sporting event in the world, an event to live with and through.
Whatever sport you follow, you all have your sport, which you say is the tops. But when you come to the Tour de France, it does supersede them all. I mean, to ride round France 22 days, to cover 2,400 miles, to project people who can ride 4 or 5 marathon athletics distances in a day, they are superstars.
In his first tour, Phil Anderson finished 10th and wore yellow for 1 day. In his second, he came 5th and wore yellow for 10 days. His aggression and courage, combined with experience, serves notice on the Europeans that here is a rider with the credentials to win this most sought after of all crowns, the Tour de France. A nomad from down under, beating the locals at their own game. Anderson sets out on his third Tour de France, a pre-race favourite. On the other side of the world, few of his fellow countrymen are aware of this event, and fewer still the significance of his ranking. In the land of long distance, 2 wheels don't take you very far. Anderson, a foreigner, doing battle with 139 others, fighting heat, mountains, exhaustion, and the clock. A leading player in the world's longest piece of theatre. The last act to be played here 23 days later under the Arc de Triomphe. In much of the world, the bicycle is a child's toy. Although the oil crisis of the 70s certainly expanded its clientele, it remains essentially a leisure machine. But not in Europe. Here, everybody owns a bike. The bicycle is a machine which moved the father of the Tour de France, Henri Desgranges, to describe it as the first successful effort of intelligent life to triumph over the laws of weight. And age is apparently no barrier to its use. This social sporting club is on a day's ride through southern France, kitted up like the best pros. In France, however, they have their priorities. A day-long bike tour is fine, but where are we stopping for lunch? After all, the bikes will still be there later, but a fine French pastry. There's not much time for French pastry here. This is part of Phil Anderson's daily grind. A warm-up that begins on rollers and ends after hours on tracks and roads in the Belgian countryside. Phil is good. Commentators class him among the top 10 bike riders in the world.
Phil, like all Australians, is a nomad. When they come into Europe, they wander the world, and they do so well at it. I mean, he's going to be a very successful professional because he's got the aggressive temperament you expect. He's a particularly nice man, and he's got a nice wife too.
Phil and Anne Anderson live a pleasant life in the small town of Waregem in Belgium. Living here suits them. It's central to much of the continent's racing.
When I first moved up here, financially I wasn't in such a really good situation, and I found it a lot cheaper to live up here rather than in France. It was too fast a pace of life, it was too expensive. I visited Belgium a number of times and I found it a lot more comfortable up here. Another reason why we live up here is because there's a lot more racing. In France I could only race once a week with a team, but it means a lot of travelling. But here in Belgium it's a lot smaller country. There are races every day which I can ride. I don't need a team. If it's raining I don't have to ride. It's just like freelance racing. You can look in the newspaper in the morning. There'll be a list of races and I can pick out a race which is close by and go to that race.
Anderson is perhaps best remembered in Australia for his very gutsy and somewhat unexpected gold medal win in the 1978 Edmonton Commonwealth Games.
Well, it was a turning point in one way because I was heard of in Europe. I heard that there was a position vacant in a French club if I wanted to take it. And so I took up the challenge, threw caution to the wind, packed my suitcase and came over.
Anderson spends 5 to 6 hours a day on his bike, pushing up to 150 kilometers. Without this effort, and of course his talent, he'd be just an obscure member of the large professional contingent which races in Europe, many of them eking out a living. But obscure, Anderson isn't. It's difficult to be obscure when you're wearing yellow, the jersey traditionally worn by an overall race leader. This is the Tour de l'Aude, one of France's top 5 tours. It's a race over 4 days through the south, in territory which he'll cross again soon in the Tour de France. In 1981, this tour was Anderson's first major win, and he's leading today in the run home. Phil has ridden a long way in 5 years.
Yeah, I came over here in amateur in '79 and had quite a good year. You know, won quite a number of races, and in that time attracted quite a bit of interest from professional teams. But all the time I was saying, well, I want to stay amateur, ride the Olympics, you know, be faithful to my country and everything like that. The chances that I'd do well in the Moscow Olympics were pretty slim, you know, because it's like a lottery, really. A race like that's a one-day race, and I mean, all you have to do is flat, you know, have a puncture or fall. So, you know, I was considering turning professional, which I did in the end.
Anderson serves notice of his form as he romps in the winner with a substantial overall lead. Phil likes yellow. It's his color. For Anderson, this tour has several purposes. It's a tune-up for the grueling Tour de France, and by doing well, he establishes solidly his claim as Peugeot's #1 rider.
It's good for my morale, it's good for my team's morale, because my team now have some confidence in me because they can see that I'm on good form. Also, I get a lot of publicity for it too, which is good for my team. And so I enter the team in good spirit.
In cycling, it's the mountains which arouse passions. At the turn of the century, riders were unable to pedal all the way up these steep climbs. Today, superfit professionals ride up as a matter of course. Anderson's never been strong in this region. It's a weakness he's working hard to overcome.
The difference between training and racing is when you're racing, you have to think. Training can be a form of relaxation as well, because you're physically exerting yourself, but you don't have to be 200% concentration on what you're doing. Your life isn't on the line like what it is racing. It can be very monotonous. Just riding for 5 hours. I wake up in the morning and say, I dread it. another 5 hours at the meat works.
But superbly fit and mentally prepared, Anderson needs yet one other ingredient if he is to win the Tour de France. He must have the support of his largely French teammates.
Now, Phil has the drawbacks in as much that he isn't French, he isn't Belgian, he is actually a foreigner. No more foreign, in fact, than I am here, because if you speak the English language, you are a foreigner. Well, Phil has come to Europe at the time when the English language is making great progress in European cycling.
I think if I was a Frenchman, though, I'd get treated a little better. I'd get better support from the team. But, that's always improving. Like the first year, I didn't get much support at all, But then last year came along, and I got the yellow jersey early in the tour on the second day. But then they could see that I was quite strong and I could defend it. And by the end of the tour, they were really going strongly for me.
So Anderson's a natural. I suspect that he'll finish in the top 4 in the Tour de France. I don't think he'll ever win, but he's one of the best riders in the world. But he's not French, and if you're not French, you'll never get the 100% backing that if you were French, the team will give you.
Nevertheless, he's Peugeot's #1, the announced team leader whom the other riders will protect and help. Anderson, with their backing, has the best chance ever for a non-European to win the Tour.
Dans l'Amstel-Gold Race en début de saison, l'un des grands favoris du Tour de France 1983, l'Australien Bill Anderson. Cinq, 4, 3, 2, 1, top.
Day 1, the Tour de France prologue. A short time trial to establish who wears what jersey the following day. The start of the Tour proper.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
And immediately, the media machine devours the action, especially the Colombians.
Listo, Ferretti. El hombre se prepara. Vamos a ver, tenemos el conteo regresivo. Los últimos 5 segundos. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. ¡Partió!
The Colombians have a lot to be excited about. Their team, all amateurs, is the first from another continent to contest the Tour. Anderson is one of 5 riders listed as pre-race favourites. Today, this short 5.5-kilometer individual time trial on the outskirts of Paris is a short step on the long road to the Arc de Triomphe and the finish, 23 days from now. This year's tour covers 3,700 kilometers around France with 140 competitors and perhaps 20 able to win. Up there with Anderson as favourites are Joop Zoetemelk, a Dutchman, beginning his 13th tour. He won it in 1980 and has finished second an incredible 6 times. And Lucien Venim, 36 from Belgium. He's finished a record 13 tours. Even so, a little help from a friend is still welcome.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop!
It's only Anderson's 3rd tour. In 3 years, he's emerged from obscurity to one of the hottest chances ever for a win.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop!
At the finish, Anderson comes in 6 seconds behind the day's fastest, the Belgian, Eric van der Aarden, at 21, the tour's youngest rider. So now the tour has a leader. Anderson, staking a claim, is within striking distance in 4th place.
The Tour de France is a sports event. I think anyone will agree is the biggest annual sporting event in the whole world. And because it goes on for so long, because there are so many people watching it, probably an average of 1 million people every day for 3 weeks in the flesh, plus another 20 million or more watching it on television every day.
Stage 1 begins in Paris, and today the thoughts of France, if not all its eyes, are with a snaking column of 2-wheelers and the gods who ride them. Paris doesn't exactly stop, but there's no other event which influences the city quite as much. For the French, today there is nothing else.
There is a philosophy in France. They say that you can do everything in July. The only point we care for French people is who is wearing the yellow coat. You know, you can change the government, you can change the republic, you can put some tax more, you can increase the price of train or electricity. They just don't care. They just look for the Tour de France and they think about other things after, you know.
Within the event, the riders are almost incidental, pawns in a huge organization. Everything about it is big, its backup, the sheer scale of the race. This is one of the world's giant sports circuses.
Race entourage, there's some 2,000 people following the race around, 300 or 400 journalists writing about it every day. Nothing really compares.
Ironically, the world's biggest event is reported by people who don't actually see it. The world's media are either ahead or behind the riders, so reporters rely heavily on interviews after each stage to get their story. Remorselessly, they extract small bits of information and distill them nightly into stories for the world.
The people is watching not only because it's a race or it's sport, it's because they are sometimes crossing a place where they come from. You know, in France, in Paris, there is nearly 10 million people, but they are all coming from a part of France. And every day they watch because maybe this is their house, this is a town, this is a village, you know. Everybody has done cycling in France. When you are young, you buy a bike, and everybody knows it's very difficult to do it. So that's why it's very popular.
Stage 2 is a team time trial. Like the prologue, a race against the clock, but in this stage working as a team. Each rider taking turns up front to slice through the wind, keeping up the pace. The Tour is now heading north towards the Belgian border through undulating countryside. It's a grueling 100 kilometers and there's no room for passengers. The strong pull the weak hang on. The rest of France, well, it's still stopped. The Tour is a complex event. In effect, a series of races within a race. Each day's stage is a complete race in itself and has its own prize money. As well, each rider's daily times are added together, and the rider with the shortest time is the overall leader in the yellow jersey. This 100-kilometer team time trial was won in brilliant style by the Coupe Mercier team in just under 2 hours and 19 minutes. That's an average of 43 kilometers an hour. Peugeot had a great day. Pushing hard, they finished second, just 17 seconds slower. But not everybody, in Phil Anderson's opinion, had been working as hard as he might. And there was a strong hint of displeasure.
It was only really Steve, myself, and Robert working at the end, you know? Yeah. It's a bit hard, you know? Still, everybody was, you know, everybody was coming through, I think, if they can, you know? Yeah, I've had troubles with the team. I mean, the strongest rider is as strong as the weakest rider, you know? You can't really pull away from them. Yeah.
Despite the large number of riders in this 23-day war of attrition, most tours are dominated by one rider. In recent years, these leaders have included Eddie Merckx, the greatest of all time, nicknamed the Cannibal for his insatiable appetite for victories. This man, now retired, has most days in the yellow jersey, 96, most stage victories, 34, and is also the only man to win in a single tour the sprint, mountain, and overall leader jerseys. And there's Bernard Hinault, missing this year because of tendinitis, who's already won the Tour 4 times, worn yellow on 55 days, and won 22 stages. And he's still riding. Men like those could control packs this size. They stopped pointless attacks which wore down riders of ability with some real chance. This Tour has no such leader. The velodrome in Roubaix, the finish of the 3rd stage. Rudy Matthijs of Belgium crosses first, with Phil Anderson nowhere in sight. He eventually walked his bike across the line, looking the worse for wear.
Le maillot jaune. 2 guys went down, he tried to avoid him, but he couldn't. And they just crashed over there.
The fall hadn't cost Anderson any time, as it had occurred within the velodrome. But Anderson felt Van der Aarden should pay some price for the maneuver which brought him and the others down. A wayward maneuver which cost the French champion, Gomez, the rest of the Tour.
Van der Aarden should be given a penalisation for that. You think so? Oh, on the track, eh?
Well, what did he actually do?
What did he do? 70 metres from the line, eh? You don't swing up like that.
He just swung up, did he?
Yeah.
That's what he did. And Gomez went into him.
Yeah, Gomez was just over him, and he went down. Then Wobber, then me, and then 4 or 5 others.
Meanwhile, Anderson did don yellow, but it was Kim, the Dane, not Phil, the Australian.
Le souvenir inoubliable du Tour de France. Regardez le rouler, regardez l'évoluer. Et la mécanique et la précision.
A day in the life of the Tour de France circus starts early, and everybody's in the act.
Regardez le rouler, regardez l'évoluer. À l'arrière des podiums. Papa, maman,
In the nearby hotels, the riders who have a minimum sleep requirement of between 8 and 12 hours are barely stirring. Nevertheless, there's a blood pressure check, part of the daily routine. Commercialism is an integral part of the Tour. It sells everything from newspapers to mineral water. Everything, that is, except cigarettes. This mobile commercial precedes the riders each day for the whole 3,700 kilometers. At the hotels, the riders begin fueling up for the day, literally. Because of their huge energy requirements, the riders eat as if it's their last meal. A good rider is one who can force food down, even when he doesn't feel like it. Because not to eat can result in a lack of strength sometime later in the day. This force feeding in the morning results in riders literally eating 2 meals at breakfast. There's the usual breakfast fare, followed almost immediately with a good lunch. Usually steak, rice, and anything else loaded with energy-supplying carbohydrates. Stomach capacity appears to be a vital factor in a rider's performance. If you don't eat, you can't perform. Breakfast and lunch over, the formalities of the race begin to dominate the day. But even then, and with 2 meals slowly settling, obviously, you have to have a little extra to see you through the first leg of the day's stage. Then, of course, there's the media corps, waiting for its daily fix of fact and rumor. And always there's a reminder that in this event, time is your enemy. It would be a mistake to think that all day, every day is hard competitive racing. It's simply not possible. Before the day gets too serious, the nicely insulated pack develops a sort of social life of its own. Dotted throughout most stages are rush sprints. By winning these, a rider can get up to 12 seconds lopped off his overall time. For a leading rider, these are valuable bonuses. These sprints are wearing, and they become pointless if they tire the rider to the extent that he falls off the day's pace. And always, of course, you have to keep eating. Each team in the Tour has 10 members, and they work much the same as a small military unit. The leader is protected. When he punctures, one of the team will pass him his own wheel or even bike, wait for him if necessary, and shepherd him back through the pack. The whole team keeps a sharp eye on any breakaways. Some matter, some don't. Today, Swiss champion Serge Demier had dropped everybody off, but he started the day nearly 23 minutes behind the overall leader. A stage win of a few minutes was no cause for concern for the leaders. The day had been a long, debilitating test of endurance. Nearly 300 kilometers with 8 rush sprints. Today followed 150 kilometers yesterday, and there'll be another 250 tomorrow.
It's like normal 8-hour day, eh? 9 to 5. We didn't stop for lunch, though.
The racing cycles are marvelous precision machines, and a small army of assistants work long into the night, cleaning and repairing and changing gears to accommodate the requirements of the next stage. Keeping these wheels turning is straightforward enough. A new tire, an adjustment, a new part here and there. But coaxing back to life the machine that pushes those wheels is a different proposition. The masseur is a linchpin in the pro rider's ability to survive. The magician who conjures up willing flesh for the following day.
Well, Phil has had a very sensible, intelligent first week. Last year, when he had the yellow jersey after 2 days, he expended a lot of energy in defending it, sprinting for every intermediate sprint. This year, Phil has kept his place up at the top of the leaderboard by just going for 1 or 2 of these sprints, not every one. And because of that, and his consistently good form, he's up in 3rd place, which is an ideal position to be in.
Wilcoxon's assessment of Anderson is echoed by other veterans. But there's another 2,300 kilometres yet to go, and for Anderson to emerge from this bunch as a clear leader will require endurance, sheer guts, a lot of support, and some luck.
He's much fresher, he's got a great ambition, and I think he's going to win the race.
Paris to Pau, 9 stages, 1,600 kilometres, 42 hours, 6 minutes, 38 seconds in the saddle. But so far, hardly a mountain. The outlook at this stage was bright for the Tour's English-speaking riders, as the daily ritual of jersey presentation showed clearly. Apart from the stage winner, Frenchman Philippe Chevalier, Sean Kelly, already in the green leading sprinter's jersey, took the all-important yellow by 1 second from the Dane Kim Anderson. Top junior rider in the white was Stephen Roach, another Irishman. Only the distinctive red polka dot King of the Mountain jersey was held by a Frenchman, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle. Anderson was in 3rd place, just 4 seconds off the lead. 130 riders were still in it, but the fluid nature of this tour de force and the onset of the mountains was about to inject the dose of unpredictability for which this race has become legend. The Pyrenees, the formidable barrier between France and Spain, even more so when viewed from the saddle of a bike. The roads are man-killers. They're tortuous, thin slivers of sun-baked tarmac, climbing, ever climbing into thinner air. And here from all over France they come, hundreds of thousands of fans perched precariously on hillsides and spilling into roads not designed for them. This obsession with mountain climbing sees the hordes camp overnight and then wait hours to see a few minutes at most of the agony which in years gone by prompted riders to shout "assassin" at tour organizers. The fans, as if to distract from the suffering, scream encouragement. This territory in cycling terms represents true grit. This is where tours are won or lost. The Pyrenees section is a 198-kilometre savaging with 4 steep climbs, the steepest of which, the Tourmalet, involves climbing 1,400 metres over a distance of 18 kilometres. For the best climbers, the suffering is said to approach the last rounds of a boxing match. For the others, it's worse. Anderson is traditionally not strong in the mountains, and they again proved his nemesis.
For Phil, it started very badly because on the first climb, he crashed and his shoe came off, which was a bit of a disaster because he was left sitting in the road trying to undo a double knot on his shoe. None of his teammates waited for him, and it took him a long time to get back up to the front. And he didn't finally make it until the approach to the second big climb, the Tourmalet. But Phil was quite happy because he was with guys like Van Imp and Zoetemelk, Bernardo, who was climbed the next climb with them, while Kelly and Anderson, the Dane, were both dropped. And this made Phil the actual race leader. If he'd stayed in that position to the end of the stage, he'd have had the yellow jersey, which would have been fantastic. And just at this point, one of Phil's teammates, Pascal Simon, who's a 26-year-old Frenchman, he suddenly attacked without telling Phil, without telling Stephen Roach, who was with them, and took them completely by surprise. And because he was a Frenchman, he got away with it. And at the end of that day, Simon was in the yellow jersey.
Yes, because on my point, Simon is better than Anderson in a tour.
Pascal Simon acknowledges his yellow jersey. Teammate Robert Miller on the dais for winning the stage. Lucien Vanin claimed the coveted polka dot climber's jersey. All this while Anderson was still struggling home, now nearly 9.5 minutes behind the leader in 10th place.
You know, on the last climb there, Kelly's group caught us and they were going a bit too fast for me, so...
It's pretty hard on me, really, because I'm leader of the team and then somebody does that to me, you know. When I'm having a bad day, it's like stabbing somebody in the back or stepping on them, you know. I know the director wouldn't be very happy and the press certainly wouldn't be very happy if I attacked a Frenchman in my own team and stuff like that.
The next day, the French public, oblivious to Anderson, was hailing Pascal Simon as the new French Revolution. The French commentators saw Anderson's plight philosophically.
Anderson is considered as an individual man, a little. It's not always, they say, that Anderson is not always playing the team spirit. And cycling, it's an individual sport, but you can win only by team. If you have a good team, you can win the Tour de France. If you are alone, you cannot win. And Anderson was not in a team where everybody was working for him.
So Peugeot had a new team leader, Pascal Simon. Anderson was now required to ride and protect Simon. He was saddled with housekeeping chores, picking up refreshments, chasing breakaways, protecting Simon, maintaining and withholding pace as the need arose. But today, fate struck another blow, this time directly at Simon and so indirectly at Anderson.
Pascal fell off and bucketed his shoulder, eh? So I had to push him all the way, goddammit.
At the end of stage 11, the media had a field day. Simon had a hairline fracture of the left shoulder blade. Zoetemelk, lying 5th, failed a dope test and was penalized 10 minutes. Anderson was languishing in 9th place. The 12th stage. Pascal Simon fronted for the start despite his injury. But he couldn't last, could he?
Now, if I'd have been a team manager, I would have gone and looked at what we have behind Simon to back him up, knowing that in 2 or 3 or 4 days, Simon must retire.
The procession continued. Simon, wincing at every pothole, managed to stay in the race, dragged along by his team. For Anderson, Simon was an anchor.
Yeah, you say
Helen with
Helen
Coke.
has Coke.
Along the route, Phil's wife Anne was there to do what she could.
Oh, Mom has Coke!
But as so often in this race, the best laid plans come to zero.
Oh, shit! I missed so good.
And as a reminder to Phil, Kim Anderson, the Dane, pulled off a 12th stage win, underlining the absence of the Australian's name from the daily placings. It was frustrating stuff. Fit enough to attack, but unable to, through having to look after an unfit leader.
It wasn't easy sitting back though, it was quite hard, you know. Once the Wolver started chasing, it was quite difficult.
And as Anderson watched Simone struggle painfully into the yellow for the 3rd successive day, how much longer?
The accident of Pascal Simon changed a lot of things because nobody wants to attack Pascal Simon, because if you attack Simon when he was hurt, you know, you are going to be unpopular. So you cannot beat a man which is at the ground, and everybody waits for Pascal Simon to go out of the race.
Drama has always been an ingredient of the Tour. In the very first Tour in 1903, there were 60 starters. 20 finished to prove that mere humans could ride for 20 days without inevitable death. Early tours were also much more bitterly contested. Some competitors had allies who scattered nails along the route to give them a bit of an edge. Cheating was rife. Riders even hopped trains, or were towed along by all but invisible steel wires. Today, much has changed, and yet some parts of those early days remain. The Tour continues to be a sort of monastic two-wheeled procession, as women are frowned upon. The origin of this chastity can be traced to the Tour's founder, Henri de Grange, who believed that riders had to eat, sleep and breathe cycling, particularly sleep. He was called the Trappist of the sport, and his attitude to women is still reflected to some extent today. To replace the women, there is now money, honor and glory. So you keep climbing and finishing for as long as you can, while you hold off age and tendinitis and injury. So another stage finishes. Simone still in yellow, just. Anderson still there in the first 10. But even Simone's teammates can now see the writing on the wall. Stephen Roche.
Simone, today he had a very sore, so I don't know really what's going to happen now. I was very confident before, but now when I see him today, I think it's maybe 50-50 that he'll go on, you know. Tomorrow okay, but Sunday I don't know.
Simone's ordeal has captured the imagination of the French, eager for a sporting hero in this hot summer. And each night there's a special cheer as he finishes yet again. The Puy de Dôme, an extinct volcano in central France, and it's today's destination. An apparently short 16-kilometer individual time trial, but a grueling climb all the way, a sort of uphill sprint. Anderson, for the first time in a week, is not shackled by the need to protect Simone. And here on the edge of a sun-baked road that leads to the top, an estimated 500,000 people. At a point 2/3 along the route, and after climbing about 400 meters, Anderson was well up. But as the incline got steeper, he weakened. This was territory for the climbing specialist, and no place for Anderson to begin a comeback. Phil dropped nearly 4 minutes. Simone clung to the yellow by the skin of his teeth after not being able to make a real effort out of the saddle. This was tough enough for a fit man, but for a man with a cracked shoulder blade?
They stayed with Simon. They decided that when he's gone, the tour is finished for them. They didn't look back and say, well, look, Anderson can take over. Let's at least let him attack. Let's suffer the publicity that he's attacking his own team leader, but let's take all the publicity, good or bad. Instead, they wrote themselves into Simon, and at the same time, they wrote Anderson out of this Tour de France.
After a week of dancing to Pascal Simone's tune, the race today developed a new character as the Alps finally persuaded the Frenchman to abandon the Tour. Today's 223-kilometer stage would finish at Alpe d'Huez, a ski station 1,800 meters above sea level. The final 13 kilometers rising 1,100 meters. The spectators do their best, but it's small comfort. Anderson, finally free of any responsibility to Simone, was doing okay today. He paced it well, and despite the mountains, held his overall position. The finish today saw the emergence of a slightly built young Parisien in his first tour take the overall lead. Laurent Fignon, at 22, was getting due reward for consistency and, to an extent, cunning rather than strength. The French, fond of revolutions, had discovered yet another conqueror, and he would lead his troops all the way to the Champs-Élysées. For 23 days, Paris has waited. Not with bated breath, perhaps, but with an air of expectancy this lady always reserves for her conquering heroes. Crowds trickle in from early morning to line the major routes, tucked in behind what appears to be the entire French gendarmerie. Well, 3,000 of them anyway. While Paris prepares, the riders do a final 195-kilometer stage. Destination, the Champs-Élysées and the Arc de Triomphe. This grand lady of a city, with patriotism in abundance, reserves the world's most glorious finishing straight exclusively for these men. The Champs-Élysées didn't become the final ceremonial altar until the mid-70s. The number of spectators who turned out then was so large, the two-wheel pageant has finished here ever since.
All the guys who came to the start felt they could win this Tour de France. 20 winners. And now you can never predict that situation ever happening for maybe a quarter of a century. So they all thought, this is it, the chance to make a fortune, to go home popular. I'm going to win the Tour. What's happened? You've had 6 different leaders. You've had something like 12 nations win stages in the Tour de France. And you've seen riders who should have won this Tour normally drop out because they're exhausted, trying to contend with all the attacks. It's a fabulous Tour de France, probably the best I've ever seen. I've seen 12.
And so, after 23 days, the Tour arrives. The pack of riders sealed, the chance of successful breakaways remote. The entry into Paris is too prestigious. Fignon has started the day with a lead of more than 4 minutes on his nearest rival. He only needs to finish to become the youngest rider for 19 years to win. A new French hero after 105 hours, 7 minutes and 52 seconds in the saddle. A tour which, despite the absence of one single dominant rider, would be the most talked about for many years. Anderson crossed the line in 6th place for the stage, 9th overall. But Anderson's experience during this tour led quickly to speculation about his future with the Peugeot team.
I think I'll find another job though,
Another job or another team?
Another job.
Another team.
Oh no, I don't know.
Huh?
I haven't decided yet.
He eventually did, ending a 4-year association with Peugeot. He's now leader of the Dutch rally team, sponsored by the Japanese Panasonic company. And what about his performance? Well, if his 9th overall appears disappointing, it's worth making some points. True, he did not once stand on a dais, but he still came home his team's leading rider. And what happened to the yellow jersey winners? Eric van der Aden, in yellow for 2 days, didn't finish. The Coupe Mercier's team Jean-Louis Gauthier, in yellow for 1 day, finished 76th. Kim Anderson, the Dane so much in the spotlight, wearing yellow for 6 days, managed only 28th. Pascal Simon, the teammate who attacked Anderson and wore yellow for 7 days, did not finish. Apart from Fignon, only Sean Kelly, in yellow for 1 day, did better, and he finished just 2 places ahead of Anderson. Laurent Fignon wore yellow for the last 6 days. Of the 140 riders who originally started, only 87 were there to see this final presentation.
You know, I'm going to be here to win the Tour one day, and I don't know if it's going to be next year or the following year, but I'm going to win it someday.
You know, is this private company going to make a film, but you know, nothing in national television or anything. I think they would, you know.
Right. Okay, Phil. Phil, this year, above all years, I think you trained harder than ever before. Is that right?
Yeah. This year is, you know, the tour is my sole goal for the year. You know, whereas before, I've had other races to build up for, like the early season classics and races like that. But this year, it's all for the tour, and I've been preparing 100% for the tour, and hopefully the condition is peaking.
And yet you had this brilliant win in the Amstel Gold Race, the first Australian since Sir Hubert Opperman. That's 1931. That was 50 years ago. That must have been a pretty big target as well.
Yeah. Well, it was the first classic I've ever won, and my condition, you know, at this time of the year, a month ago, was very good, and I saw the chance in the race, and I took it and justly won in Feigen.
How many miles a week are you tucking away in training and racing?
Well, I'm doing like at the moment, I'm doing 130 to 150 kilometers a day.
That's nearly 100 miles a day.
Yeah, and sometimes, 2 days ago, I had a race near Antwerp. I rode to the race. It's 100 kilometers away, and then I rode the race. It was 150 kilometers, so that's like 250 kilometers. So, you know, the preparation has also included these races as well, which really pick up the speed. So it's, you know, my mileage it's there.
Do you ever get bored, lonely hours in the saddle? Because most of your training's alone, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of my training is alone. It does become boring at times, but you know, I interlace my individual training with racing, and quite often I'm racing in France. I'm in the team, and so you know, in some ways, training alone is a type of relaxation from the tension and the pressures of racing and in a tight bunch.
Now, you've had really a meteoric ride. You've had really a meteoric rise since you won the Commonwealth Games gold medal in Edmonton in '78. You turned professional and you denied yourself a chance of winning an Olympic gold medal. But since you turned pro, you've just gone from better to best. Oh, fuck, start again. I swore. Ready?
Yep.
Phil, you've had a meteoric rise since you won the gold medal in the Commonwealth Games in 1978. You sacrificed the chance of a possible gold medal in the Olympic Games in Moscow by turning professional. Have you ever regretted that?
No, not really. I can't really look back, you know, on, you know, if I've done anything wrong. But I think, well, what made me really decide to not to stay amateur was that I was in Europe in '79 as an amateur, and I'd had a good year, and I had 2 or 3 offers to turn professional, and it was whether I'd stay amateur to ride one race, the Olympic road race, which entailed going back to Australia, riding selection races, getting to the state team, then getting the national team. It meant a lot of meant taking a lot of chances. You know, I might not even got into the state team, and then I had to get in the national team, and then I had to come over and to do well in the Olympics, and then you get a medal, which is it's very nice, but for me, I was looking for a career in cycling, and so I might not have had the chance of, I might never have had the opportunity, the offers which I received that year when I was amateur. So it was a difficult decision, but you know, I think I made the right choice.
Now let's look at the Tour de France, Phil. It's your 3rd tour. You finished 10th in the first one you rode. You finished 5th in the second one. So if we keep going like that, then you must finish 1st in the 3rd one. Through your own eyes now, how do you see this tour going?
Well, I think I've done everything I can in preparing for it, and you know, hopefully I'll be up there on the podium in Paris you know, at the end of the tour. But you know, it's a long way. It's over 2,000 mile. It's, you know, a lot can happen in that. There's a lot of luck. You can take a lot of chances, and you know, if everything goes like it has the last couple of years, and with the extra training and with the extra confidence I think I've gained, I think you know, I should finish well up there.
Now this year the Tour is different for two reasons. One, it starts and finishes in Paris and it never goes outside of France at all. And two, of course, there are amateur riders allowed in it for the first time. Let's look at the start in Paris first of all with the prologue time trial. If you look back over records in any major stage race, the prologue is an important event. It's not just an opener to the race, is it? No.
The prologue for the Tour is quite long. It's more a time trial than a prologue. This year I think it's 5 kilometers, 5.6 kilometers, something like that, which is really quite long. And in a time trial that long, you can, in a prologue that long, you'll get quite a difference between the first and the last rider. It could be as much as 1 minute, I think. Last year it was 7 kilometers, and it was well over a minute. I think it was 1:10, minute 15 seconds. And so already, you know, before you've done your first kilometer, first 10 kilometers, you've got a gap of a minute. And so it's really very important to finish up there.
Now, last year's Tour was so memorable for back home in Britain because, of course, there was Sean Kelly of Ireland, and he was in a fine duel with you for that yellow jersey for at least 10 days. You wouldn't let him have it, but you only pipped him by a matter of seconds each time. And, of course, Sean ran out the winner of the points race. You ran out finally the winner of the Young Riders race, which is a white jersey, and you finished 5th in the race. Do you see those first 2 weeks going in a similar fashion before we hit the mountains again?
Not for me, I don't think. I don't think I'll be... I've grown up since then. I don't want to be... I'm not really going for points. I'm not really going for seconds. I think the race... you know, I'm going for the win, whereas last year I was going for the yellow jersey as long as I could. I was going for the win, but in reality, I never would have won the Tour. It was just a matter of holding the yellow jersey. And so this year I'm going to just reserve myself, contain myself until the critical time comes, like in time trials and the mountains.
Okay, you've named 2 points, the time trials and the mountains. Would you say they're your weaker points of your build or not?
Well, I've never really been able to show myself in there because of the way I've been riding the Tour the last couple of years. That is, spending myself a lot in the first couple of weeks. But I think I've shown just recently, like in the Tour Romandy in Switzerland and in the Dauphiné, that I can time trial and that I can climb quite well. You know, when I haven't been spending myself sprinting all the time, being under the great pressure, you know, of being up there and having to fight for the lead. So I think, you know, having this, I think it will be a lot easier when I get to these.
Is it true, in fact, that about 3 or 4 weeks ago, you actually flew down to the Alps and went up that famous climb Alpe d'Huez just for training?
Yeah. I went down there training with my wife, and she'd be driving the car, and she'd meet me at the top, and I'd be riding up, and then I'd go down the other side, and then go up the next mountain. I did in 4 days. I did something like 12 climbs.
12 major climbs.
Yeah, it was.
The Galibier, I suppose, had snow on the top, did it?
Yeah, the Galibier is closed. Well, there's quite a few climbs are closed, but you can ride up as far as you can.
Now, if we come to the Battle of Sean Kelly, you talked about trying to improve in the mountains and in time trials. Kelly has in fact managed to do this, hasn't he? He's not just a contender anymore for just the green jersey, but he could win the Tour with the lucky breaks, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could win, but I don't know. I think he'll be going for the green jersey again. I don't know if he's going really for the win of the Tour. It'd be good to see him up there in top contention for the general classification, but I don't know. I've seen the parcours for this race, and after his unfortunate accident earlier in the year when he broke his collarbone and his wrist. I don't think he's had the races. I don't think he's had the build-up, the preparation that he really needs to win the Tour. But I think he'll be up there for the green jersey, and I can see him winning stages.
Would you be satisfied now with a ride that 2 years ago was very, very much an amazing performance, which was just to finish as a stage winner or a wear of the yellow jersey for a day? Would that satisfy you anymore?
Yeah, that's. I think that's a very satisfactory ride, you know. Except now, I'm setting my goals further. Every year, I'm setting my goals further. Like, I remember 2 years ago coming into the Tour, I wanted to finish in the top 20 and win a stage, because at that stage I was quite confident I was going well. I'd won quite a big race just before the Tour, and you know, I was all ready to go. But I hadn't ridden the Tour before that. It was a new experience. But now, after having ridden the Tour and worn the jersey both times, the yellow jersey, and last year having won a stage, this year I'm going for you know, first or in the first three and doing well. You know, maybe winning a mountain stage or doing well in the times trials.
Last year, I seem to recall there was a little bit of discussion. It might have even been argument in the hotels at night as to who would lead your Peugeot Cycles team. And you felt you'd done enough, and Jean-René Bernardeau felt that he should lead it. Halfway through, of course, you came up in yellow. What did the French riders think of that? And did they then support you, or did they want to go and work for Bernardeau?
Well, we went into the Tour, and there's no argument that Bernardeau would be leader, because he is in top condition.
He's since left the team, of course.
Yeah, he's now in another team, but there was no argument he would be leading the Tour. But then after a couple of days, I got the leader's jersey. I got the yellow jersey in stage 2, I think it was, and from there, you know, I needed the support of the team, and it took a couple of days for me to win the confidence and the support of the other riders. Once they started helping me and could see that I was benefiting from their help, and I was quite capable of retaining the lead. They came across and came to the party, and they began helping me. And then when they saw that Bernardeau wasn't going so well and his previous form was dropping a bit, you know, then their support was really 100%.
There's so many riders this year who could win the Tour, Phil. Let me just throw one or two names at you, and I'd like to hear what you think about them, because let's start with the old man of the Tour de France. He really is an amazing character, Joop Zoetemelk from Holland. He's had 6 second places. He's won the Tour. Can he win it again?
Well, I don't know. Joop is a very interesting character. I can't really see him winning the Tour again. You know, I don't know, something about his character. He just hasn't got the winning edge on him anymore. You know, he's going very well at the start of the year when he beat Stephen Roach in the Tour de Haute Var. That I wasn't, well, Stephen told me that he was very aggressive, and I've just never seen him like that. But if he can be like that, well, maybe he can win the Tour, you know.
What about the other Dutchman, Johan van der Velde, who was in the top 4 last year?
Yeah,
and of course Peter Winnen.
Yeah, well, I think Peter Winnen is a very good climber, and you know, I don't think he'll get the mountain jersey, but he could quite easily win a mountain stage and maybe be up there in contention for the yellow jersey. And Van der Velde, he's not so much a mountain specialist, but he's in contention for the yellow jersey as well. You know, they're both very strong in the mountains.
Do you think the TI Rally team will be a strong team this year? Because they've lost Jerry Knateman sadly through that serious crash early on in the season. Ross doesn't want to ride anyway because he can't climb mountains.
Yeah.
So that rather weakens the team, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we'll still see a number of stages going to the rally team, as we always do. Like in the past, sometimes they won 8 stages, 9 stages, just the rally team. But that was namely due to Kneteman and Ras. But I think without those two, we could still see some of the stages going to them, because they are a very solid, well-working team.
What about the man who I think is the most ungainly cyclist we've ever seen, Robert Albin? Yet he can climb mountains like an angel.
Yeah.
He was second last year. Would he go one better?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he's got it in him. Well, he's good at climbing, but that's about all. Like he can't time trial that well. Then when it comes to the flat stages, if he misses a break, I can't see him. I don't think he's strong enough to bridge a gap by himself. Maybe if he has a good team working for him, you know, with Paul Schuren, I think maybe he'll be able to get up there. But I don't think he's a winner.
What about the marvellous young Swiss climber, Piet Breu?
Yeah, Piet Breu, he's... I can see he's building up for the Tour. You know, he's been riding well in the Tour of Switzerland, and now with the Tour, I think we could see some surprises coming from him. You know, he's really impressed me the last couple of years. All he has to do is improve his time trialing a bit, and you know, he'd be up there. It's you know, he's a very talented climber. You know, I think he's the best climber in the field at the moment.
There's a great deal of interest too, of course, in Stephen Roach riding his first Tour de France. 2 years ago he had 10 wins, first year professional. He had a dip in his season last year because he was a little bit exhausted, but he came out of it well, and he's proved that this year. He's won the Tour of Romandy, you were second. What will happen if Stephen gets ahead of you and you're obliged to work for him? Would you do that?
Yeah, I'd work for Stephen if you know, if he's in a position to win. Sure.
And would Stephen work for you?
Yeah, I think you know, that's Stephen and I work very well together, and you know, we have a good relationship, and I think you know, we've got to look at the long-term possibility of him winning or myself winning. You know, I mean, if he rides a good prologue and he's 15 seconds ahead of me after the first stage or something, you know, just because of that, the whole team isn't going to be working for him. You know, and vice versa, you know, but he's a very talented rider, and I think we can expect to see some really good things from him this year. I think it's going to be a year for him to gain his confidence in the Tour, you know. Like my first year, I went into the Tour, my first Tour was really to get to know myself, because it's not like riding a classic or a one-day race or even a week race. 3 weeks, you've got to get to know how your body's going to react after 2 weeks of racing. If you can continue, you know, it goes down to the chemistry of your body. You know, like it's not just like.
Phil, can you actually describe to me the sort of pain you go through in the stage? Can you even remember it after it's all over?
Yeah, you can remember it, because like you'll be sitting at the table after a race, and you know, your whole body will just be in pain, and just to sit there at the table, it's an effort. Even for me, sometimes after a hard training ride, when I come back from training, you know, I can sit there at the table and just eating or just sitting at the table. It's, you know, you just feel like killing over and going to sleep. You know, you're just so exhausted, and in the mountains, that's how you feel every night. Well,
but when you're climbing the mountain, it's a very hot day. You can see the summit and you can see the crowd, and they can be literally 2 or 3 kilometers above you.
Yeah.
What on earth goes through your mind then when you're really suffering already?
Well, you wonder if you can stay with the leaders, if you can keep up that pace. You know, if the pace is really hard, you think, well, maybe I should take it easier, let these riders go on ahead, and then I'll just keep my pace and hopefully reserve a bit of strength so I can catch them on the descent or before the next climb. Or you can be calculating, well, these riders I'm with, they're 15 minutes behind me on general classification or something like that. You can let them go, or you know, you got to calculate who is dangerous, who's not.
Pace yourself.
Yeah, it's a matter of pacing yourself.
Now, the one man we haven't talked about, of course, is the rider who, it's a case of will he come to the start line, won't he come to the start line, Bernard Hinault. He's won the Tour de France 4 times?
Yeah.
I can't remember all of a sudden, I've gone blank. Is it 4 times? He's gone for the... Yes, of course, we'll start again.
Yeah. 5 times, he's going for 6.
Right. Huh?
Isn't it?
No, he's going to equal the record of 5 this time.
Oh,
then he goes for 6 next year. That's right.
Oh, whatever.
That's what I had the blank for. I thought it was 6, yeah. Okay. The one man we haven't talked about, of course, Phil, is Bernard Hinault, the great French idol. If he wins this Tour de France, then, of course, he's equal the record of Eddy Merckx and Jacques Anquetil, that with 5 wins, and that means next time it's 6, and that'll be probably where he'll come out altogether. But he does have this problem with his knee.
Yeah.
Now, is it a serious problem, or is it one of Hinault's tricks? Because he has this habit of psyching riders out, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he's done this before. He did this 2 years ago, just before the World Championships, before he won the World Championships in Solange. He pulled out, I think it was tendonitis, he pulled out of a tour just 1 week before, saying that if he shouldn't ride, maybe he will, maybe he won't. And then he comes out and he wins the World Championship. And but I think it's quite serious, his problem, because he had this problem the same year he won the World Championship after riding the Giro. After riding the Tour of Italy, he started the Tour de France, and he suffered tendonitis again, and he had to pull out. And this year he's ridden the Tour of Spain, where he had quite a bit of difficulty, and they say it's the same thing. He's got tendonitis. So I think it's quite serious. I've heard from other riders riding the Tour of Spain that he's really having serious problems there.
And he had a job to win the Tour. In fact, one of the riders he beat there was a young man called Gillespie, who's riding his first Tour de France, and he's only 22 and a possible new boy on the scene, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
So
exactly.
There's another man to conjure with. What about the amateurs, though, Phil? First of all, do you agree with the principle of them opening racing to amateurs against professionals?
I think maybe with national teams of countries which can't field professionals, like there are no professionals in Colombia.
Right.
In Portugal there are 1 or 2, so maybe that's okay. But I mean, if they fielded like an American amateur team, or if they fielded a team from France, an amateur team from France, I don't really agree to that, because then you'd find sponsors like my sponsor Peugeot or Renault or whoever it is, Jatan. They wouldn't be putting money into the professional sport. They'd be doing it in the amateur sport. They'd be sponsoring the amateur French team or something like that, because they could be doing it for a lot less money. And so in a way it can be killing the sport.
Now the Colombians have had a big backing for this Tour de France. Reportedly £300,000 has been given to them to help them prepare properly for the event. So they're not going to come here just for the trip. They're going to be a threat.
Yeah.
Do you know them at all?
I've never ridden against them, but I've heard that they've done a lot of training at altitude in Colombia, and they've been training. They've raced the Tour of Colombia at very high. They've done very well, and I hear that they've been doing some incredible performances in the tour there. I think one mountain stage there, though, one actual mountain stage, they did an average of 40 kilometres an hour. Like in the tour, the average is 28 kilometres an hour on the mountain stages. And so if they're going to be entering the tour and riding like that, I think it'll be a real surprise for the professionals.
Great. Phil, the best of luck. We'll follow you every weekend on World of Sport, and we hope we see you in yellow.
Thanks very much, Phil. Thank you.